Before we begin, I want you to imagine something. You wake up one morning and realize you never have to worry about money again. Not because you won the lottery, not because someone handed it to you, but because you built a life where wealth flows naturally from who you've become. Today, I'll show you the path, 7 ways to get rich and achieve financial freedom, built on principles as old as time and as reliable as sunrise. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be listening from, your home, your office, or your quiet corner of the world, this message is for the individual who knows deep within that life holds far more than routine, struggle, and worry. It is for the person who has decided that financial freedom is not a fantasy, but a responsibility. And like all great responsibilities, it begins with understanding. Wealth does not arrive by accident. It is not a matter of luck, timing, or being born in the right place. It is the natural consequence of becoming the kind of person who can attract it, grow it, and sustain it. Money is simply a mirror reflecting back the value we offer to the world. And tonight, I want to share with you 7 timeless ways to get rich, enduring principles that have carried countless men and women from scarcity to abundance. The first is clarity. You must know exactly what you want financially. A person without a financial goal is like a ship without a rudder, adrift, powerless, and at the mercy of the currents. Decide what financial freedom means to you. Declare it, write it, stand behind it. Second, increase your value. The marketplace rewards value and nothing else. To earn more, you must become more skilled, more disciplined, more capable. Wealth is always preceded by personal growth. Third, create more than you consume. Every wealthy individual understands this law. They build, innovate, and produce. They solve problems. They create value where none existed before. And in doing so, prosperity follows them. Fourth, master your habits. You cannot rise while your habits pull you down. Save before you spend. Invest before you indulge. Learn before you entertain. What you do repeatedly, you eventually become, and you must become a creator of wealth. Fifth, learn to use time wisely. Time is the only resource you can never earn back. Use it with care. If you feel poor, examine how you are spending your hours, not your income. Sixth, surround yourself with direction, not distraction. The company you keep will either water your ambition or drown it. Seek those who inspire discipline, effort, and growth. And seventh, take full responsibility. The moment you declare that your financial life is entirely your responsibility, regardless of where you start, you step into your true power. Wealth begins in the mind long before it appears in the bank, and this is a truth as old as civilization itself. Every structure ever built, every enterprise ever created, every fortune ever earned, began first as a tiny spark in the private world of thought. Before a single brick was laid or a single dollar exchanged hands, an idea was conceived, nurtured, and believed in. And so it is with your financial destiny. Long before you ever touch abundance, you must first create the inner conditions that welcome it. The mind is the workshop, the drafting table, the birthplace of your richest future, and everything you will one day build begins with the thoughts you allow to occupy that sacred space. Most people misunderstand wealth. They believe it begins with circumstances, opportunities, or the whims of luck. But if you could listen carefully to the quiet stories behind every self-made success, you would hear the same beginning each time: a person who changed the way they thought about themselves and the possibilities available to them. They stopped seeing themselves as limited and began seeing themselves as capable, resourceful, and deserving of a better life. They didn't wait for proof. They created the proof through belief followed by action. They understood that a person who thinks scarcity produces scarcity, and a person who thinks abundance produces abundance. You see, the mind is the soil of your future. Plant seeds of fear, doubt, and limitation, and your life will produce a harvest in the same likeness. Plant seeds of clarity, discipline, vision, and determination, and you will reap a very different result. Wealth, like a crop, does not appear instantly. It grows slowly, quietly, almost imperceptibly at first. But growth begins the moment a new thought is planted with conviction. The moment you believe you can rise, you begin rising. The moment you accept that financial freedom is possible for you, you begin acting in ways that make it inevitable. Thought directs action, and action shapes reality. When you believe that you can create wealth, you begin to seek opportunities others overlook. You learn when others are entertained. You save when others spend. You build when others procrastinate. You move with purpose when others drift without direction. This shift does not happen because the world suddenly changes for you. It happens because you change the way you interpret the world. Your mind becomes tuned to progress, to growth, to solutions, and the world responds accordingly. Every individual who has ever transformed their financial life began with a single internal decision to think differently, to see differently, to expect more from themselves and from life. And once this internal switch is flipped, wealth begins forming long before it becomes visible, because the mind is always the first place where riches are born. You must become valuable before you become wealthy, for money is never the starting point of riches. It is merely the echo of the value you bring to the world. There is a quiet law at work in every corner of life. We are compensated in direct proportion to the service we render. This principle has guided the rise of every successful individual, and it remains as unchanging as gravity itself. A person who seeks wealth without first increasing their value is like a farmer demanding a harvest without planting the seed. It cannot be done. The world does not reward desire. It rewards contribution. To become valuable is to improve the instrument through which you meet the world. Your mind, your skills, your habits, your character. Wealth does not flow to those who merely wish for it, but to those who prepare themselves to receive it. When a person develops rare skills, when they cultivate discipline, when they refine their thinking and elevate their standards, they naturally rise in the marketplace, for value is always recognized sooner or later. A person who is growing cannot remain unnoticed. Just as a lamp placed in a dark room must give off light, a mind that is expanding must produce results that others can see and benefit from. Most people seek shortcuts hoping to bypass the slow, steady work of self-improvement. But there are no shortcuts where value is concerned. You increase your earning only by increasing your usefulness. Ask yourself each morning, how can I bring more to the world today? How can I make myself indispensable in my field? How can I deepen my understanding, sharpen my skills, or enhance the quality of what I do? The answers to these questions will guide you toward the habits that transform ordinary individuals into extraordinary contributors. Becoming valuable is not about competing with others. It is about competing with who you were yesterday. It is about searching for ways to do what you do with excellence. Excellence of thought, excellence of effort, excellence of intention. When you work in this manner, you elevate yourself far beyond the level of those who do only what is required. The world is always in need of those who go the extra mile, those who take pride in their craft, those who understand that mastery is the result of deliberate and continuous improvement. And there is something remarkable that happens when you focus on becoming valuable. Opportunities begin to find you. Doors open that you once thought were locked. People seek your insight, your skill, and your presence. Wealth becomes not something you chase, but something you attract. For value is a magnet, and the moment you commit yourself to increasing it, you align yourself with the natural laws that govern prosperity. Creating more than you consume is one of the most powerful principles in the entire realm of wealth building, and yet it is the very principle most people never consider. From the earliest days of civilization until this very moment, every individual who has risen to financial prosperity has done so by producing something of greater value than what they take from the world. This is the foundation of wealth, the quiet rule beneath every thriving business, every invention, every service that improves life. The person who creates, whether ideas, solutions, products, or improvements, stands at the gateway of abundance, while the person who merely consumes remains dependent on the labor, vision, and effort of others. Creation is the act of giving something to the world that did not exist before you touched it. It may be a skill refined, a problem solved, a system improved, or a service delivered with excellence. Consumption, on the other hand, is taking in what the world has already produced. While both are necessary, it is the balance between the two that determines a person's financial future. You cannot consume your way to wealth. You can only create your way there. And the more value you produce compared to what you use, the more the world compensates you in return. When you create more than you consume, you shift from being a taker to being a builder. This shift is not merely economic, it is psychological. You begin to see opportunities where others see obstacles. You begin to imagine possibilities where others feel limitations. You start to understand that wealth is not something outside yourself, but something that emerges from the depth of your mind and the strength of your contribution. You become the source, not the seeker. Most people spend their days consuming entertainment, distractions, comforts, conveniences, all of which have their place, but none of which lead to progress unless balanced by creation. If a person consumes more time, energy, money, and attention than they produce in value, their life gradually contracts. Their opportunities dry up. Their potential goes unused. But the person who continually seeks to create increases their influence, their reach, and ultimately their wealth. For every hour spent producing something meaningful, the world grows richer, and it repays the one who made it so. Ask yourself each day, what am I adding to the world? What am I building? What am I improving? What am I shaping with my talents, my knowledge, my hands, or my voice. When this becomes your daily orientation, you step into the natural current of abundance. Wealth begins to flow toward you because you have become a source of value, and value is the currency of prosperity. The more you create, the more inevitable your financial freedom becomes. Mastering your habits is the quiet, unseen work that shapes your entire financial destiny, for habits are the invisible forces steering every moment of your life. A person may dream of wealth, speak of ambition, even set impressive goals. But if their habits are weak, inconsistent, or misaligned, their efforts collapse long before any meaningful progress is made. We do not rise to the level of our intentions, we fall to the level of our daily actions. And these actions, repeated again and again, carve the path we walk, whether toward prosperity or toward struggle. Every wealthy individual you admire has built their fortune on the foundation of disciplined habits. They save before they spend. They learn before they entertain. They invest before they indulge. These behaviors are not occasional choices. They are daily rituals, carried out whether they feel motivated or not. That is the true power of habit. It continues its work long after emotion has faded. Discipline, repeated until it becomes automatic, is one of the greatest shortcuts to success, for it removes the need to make endless decisions. The habit decides for you, and the habit always decides in your favor. Consider your own routines. Each morning and evening, you are performing dozens of small actions without consciously thinking about them. These routines either move you an inch closer to wealth or an inch farther away, and the inches accumulate silently. A dollar saved becomes 10, then 100, then 1,000. A page read becomes a book, then a library, then a transformed mind. A small improvement in your craft becomes expertise, then mastery, then a level of value the world is eager to reward. None of this happens suddenly, it happens habitually. Most people underestimate the power of these small behaviors. They look for dramatic breakthroughs, grand opportunities, or extraordinary moments, but wealth is rarely built in moments. It is built in patterns. A single decision to save money may change nothing, but a habit of saving transforms an entire financial life. A single hour spent learning a new skill may feel insignificant, but a habit of daily learning reshapes your earning potential entirely. Through habits, the small becomes powerful, and the ordinary becomes transformative. And the beauty of habits is that they can be redesigned. You can replace the habits that limit you with habits that elevate you. You can choose to practice restraint where you once practiced impulse, to practice order where you once allowed chaos, to practice growth where you once accepted stagnation. In doing so, you construct a personal system that guides you toward wealth with quiet certainty. Your habits become the silent engine of your success, working faithfully day after day, shaping your identity, and making financial progress not a matter of effort alone, but of inevitability. Learning is the highest return investment you can ever make, for the mind is the one asset that appreciates with use. Every book you read, every skill you acquire, every idea you explore adds another strand to the web of your understanding, strengthening the very structure that supports your future wealth. Money may come and go, circumstances may shift, but the knowledge you cultivate becomes a permanent part of you, a resource you can draw upon in every season of life. The individuals who rise to financial independence are not merely those who work harder. They are those who think better, understand deeper, and adapt faster. The world is constantly changing, and with every change comes a new landscape of opportunity. But only the person who has invested in their mind can recognize these opportunities before others do. Education in this sense is not confined to formal schooling. It is the lifelong practice of sharpening your awareness, refining your judgment, and expanding your ability to solve problems. Wealth flows to those who solve problems, and learning equips you with the tools to do exactly that. Each new insight, each new skill, widens the sphere of what you are capable of offering to the world. Most people stop learning the moment they leave the classroom, and it is one of the greatest mistakes they make. They expect their income to grow while their mind remains still. Yet income is a reflection of value, and value grows only when knowledge grows. Those who continue learning long after others have settled into routine gain an extraordinary advantage. They read when others are entertained. They study when others are distracted. They seek mentors, ask questions, and pursue understanding not because they are required to, but because they have chosen to build a life not limited by ignorance. Learning does more than increase your earning power. It changes the way you think, and therefore the way you move through the world. It strengthens your ability to make decisions, to recognize patterns, and to act with confidence. It prevents you from falling for get-rich-quick illusions, because you understand the principles behind genuine success. It shields you from fear in uncertain times because you possess the knowledge to adapt. It gives you the calm assurance that whatever challenges arise, you have the capacity to rise with them. And there is another remarkable truth: the more you learn, the more you want to learn. Curiosity expands with use. The mind, once awakened, does not wish to return to sleep. By feeding it daily with ideas, strategies, and wisdom, you step onto a trajectory that naturally lifts you upward. Over time, the accumulation of knowledge compounds like interest, quietly, steadily, powerfully, until you have built within yourself the single greatest engine of wealth, the ability to understand the world and act skillfully within it. Surrounding yourself with direction rather than distraction is one of the most decisive choices you will ever make on the road to financial freedom. For the influences in your environment quietly shape your thoughts, your habits, and ultimately your destiny. A person rarely rises above the atmosphere they choose to live in. If you place a young oak in the shade, it will grow crooked and thin. Place it in the open sun, and it rises straight, strong, and tall. Human beings are no different. We grow in the direction of the influences that reach us most consistently, whether we realize it or not. Most people drift through life surrounded by noise, voices pulling them toward ease, comfort, distraction, and aimlessness. They talk of what cannot be done, of limitations and excuses, of burdens and obstacles. These voices, though often well-meaning, chip away at ambition. They encourage settling rather than striving, and without noticing, a person finds themselves thinking smaller, acting slower, and dreaming less. But when you choose direction, when you deliberately place yourself in the company of those who pursue growth, discipline, and achievement, you begin to rise simply by the gravity of their influence. Direction does not come only from people. It comes from what you watch, what you read, what you listen to, what you repeat to yourself in quiet moments. Every piece of information you allow into your mind is either sharpening your path or dulling it. Every conversation either pushes you forward or pulls you sideways. And every habit of consumption either enriches your vision or erodes it. The mind is endlessly receptive, and it absorbs the tone of whatever surrounds it. That is why it is essential to choose your influences with the same care you would choose the foundation of your home. Seek out people who talk about possibilities, not problems. People who speak of discipline, purpose, and better futures. People who encourage learning, improvement, and responsibility. Their presence alone becomes a silent form of mentorship. You begin to adopt their attitudes, their standards, and their expectations almost automatically. This is because human beings are profoundly influenced by the norms of the groups they identify with. When you belong to a group that values excellence, you naturally begin striving for excellence yourself. Your environment is a compass. If it is pointed toward growth, you will grow. If it is pointed toward distraction, you will drift. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence or ability, but because their surroundings continually sabotage their intentions. They try to swim upstream while living in a river that flows in the opposite direction. But once you align your environment with your purpose, progress becomes less of a struggle and more of a natural movement. Surround yourself with direction, with voices, environments, and influences that elevate your thinking, and you will find that your financial life begins to move in an entirely new trajectory. Guided quietly and powerfully by the company you keep, financial freedom comes from creating more than you consume, but it also requires something deeper. The ability to rise to the level of your standards instead of relying on the wishful optimism of goals alone. Most people believe that the difference between wealth and struggle lies in ambition. They imagine that if they simply set a large enough goal, write it on paper, say it out loud, hold it in their minds, the universe will somehow deliver the life they desire. But goals, no matter how inspiring, are only destinations. It is your standards, your non-negotiable expectations for how you live each day, that determine whether you ever reach those destinations at all. A person with high standards will do what they promised themselves long after the excitement has faded. They will follow through on their commitments even when it is inconvenient, even when no one is watching, even when progress feels slow. Standards are the lines you refuse to cross and the floors you refuse to fall below. The wealthy are not wealthy because they simply wanted more. They are wealthy because they refuse to allow themselves to operate at a lower level than required by the life they envision. They hold themselves to a code of conduct that remains firm, steady, and unwavering. Consider two individuals with the same goal, financial freedom. One treats that goal like a distant dream, returning to their old habits the moment difficulty appears. The other raises their standards. They will not allow themselves to waste the day, to spend irresponsibly, to drift without learning, or to surrender their time to distractions. They decide that certain behaviors are simply beneath the person they intend to become. And this quiet shift, from hoping to insisting, marks the beginning of transformation. The difference between who you are and who you want to be is found in your standards. Every individual is living today according to the standards they have tolerated up to this point. Some tolerate clutter, inconsistency, excuses, and stagnation. Others refuse these patterns entirely. They demand order in their thinking, discipline in their habits, and intentionality in their decisions. They do not rely on motivation because motivation is fleeting. They rely on identity, and their identity is reinforced through standards that do not bend when pressure rises. When you raise your standards, you alter the entire structure of your life. You begin selecting different friends, consuming different information, approaching problems differently, spending differently, and valuing time more deeply. Your actions shift from occasional effort to consistent discipline. Your mind shifts from hoping to expecting. And as your standards rise, your results inevitably follow. Because life has no choice but to match the level of excellence you repeatedly demonstrate through your daily behavior. Wealth expands in the presence of gratitude and vision, for these two forces shape the very atmosphere in which abundance grows. Gratitude clears the mind of resentment, scarcity, and fear, while vision gives it direction, purpose, and forward motion. When a person possesses both, deep appreciation for what they have and a clear picture of what they intend to create, they stand at the threshold of a remarkable transformation. Gratitude roots you in strength, vision pulls you toward possibility. Together they form the mental soil from which financial freedom quietly emerges. Most individuals live with the illusion that wealth is strictly the product of effort, numbers, and strategy. While these are important, they are only a part of the equation. There is an inner dimension to prosperity that cannot be ignored. A person who is ungrateful will always feel poor, no matter how much they accumulate. They will overlook the opportunities in front of them because their attention is fixed on what is missing. Gratitude opens the eyes. It allows you to see value where others see nothing. It sharpens your awareness of advantages you may have ignored. It calms the restless mind and aligns your energy with constructive action rather than anxious craving. Vision, on the other hand, gives shape to your efforts. Without vision, a person wanders. With vision, every step has purpose. The wealthy are not drifting, they are directed. They see with vivid clarity the life they intend to live and the contribution they intend to make. This vision becomes a guiding light, a silent instructor that informs daily decisions. It determines how they use their time, how they respond to challenges, and how they recover from setbacks. Vision is not fantasy, it is a disciplined picture of your potential future, held firmly until your actions begin to carve it into reality. Gratitude and vision reinforce one another. When you are grateful, your vision becomes brighter because you are no longer clouded by dissatisfaction. When you have vision, your gratitude deepens because you can see how each small step is leading towards something meaningful. Together, they lift the mind from scarcity to abundance, from frustration to creativity, from stagnation to growth. The person who practices both moves through life with a quiet confidence that others cannot quite explain. They do not rush because they know where they are going. They do not complain because they recognize the abundance already present. As these inner qualities strengthen, opportunities seem to appear more frequently, not because the world has changed, but because the person has changed. Their mind is tuned to possibility. Their heart is open to progress. Their actions align with their highest intentions. Wealth grows naturally in such an environment because the individual is operating from a state of clarity, appreciation, and purpose. In this state, they no longer chase abundance. They become the kind of person to whom abundance naturally flows. The fastest way to change your finances is to change your identity, for no amount of strategy can compensate for a person who still thinks, feels, and behaves like their old self. Wealth is not something you simply achieve, it is something you grow into. It emerges from the kind of person you believe yourself to be. A person who identifies as capable, disciplined, and worthy of financial freedom will make very different choices from the one who believes they are destined to struggle. Identity is the quiet author behind every habit, every decision, every standard you set for yourself. Long before you hold wealth in your hands, you must hold a new conception of yourself in your mind. Most people attempt to change their finances by forcing new behaviors while clinging tightly to their old identity. They try budgeting while still believing they are careless with money. They try saving while seeing themselves as someone who never gets ahead. They try learning new skills while quietly telling themselves it won't make a difference. These contradictions weaken resolve. You cannot build a new life on the foundation of an old identity. If you want different results, you must first become the person who naturally produces those results. Identity is shaped by repetition, by the thoughts you rehearse, the actions you take, and the meaning you give to your own behavior. When you repeatedly act like a person capable of financial freedom, even in small ways, your mind begins to accept this new reality. Each disciplined choice becomes a vote for the future you are creating. Each responsible decision becomes a quiet declaration of who you are becoming. This shift does not happen overnight, nor does it require dramatic change. It grows in the small, consistent decisions that reflect the identity you are choosing to adopt. Consider the identity of someone who is wealthy, not the external trappings of luxury, but the internal qualities that produced their success. They see money as a tool, not a burden. They see challenges as puzzles, not barriers. They view themselves as responsible for their financial outcomes. Their identity compels them to manage time wisely, seek knowledge continuously, and act with intention. When you begin to think as they think, behave as they behave, and expect from yourself what they expect from themselves, your results inevitably shift in the same direction. Identity leads, circumstances follow. Changing your identity requires honesty. You must be willing to look at the beliefs you carry about yourself, beliefs inherited from childhood, from society, from failure, from past mistakes, and decide which no longer serve you. You must replace the quiet language of limitation with the quiet language of possibility. Speak to yourself not as who you have been, but as who you intend to become. Act not from your history, but from your vision. Each time you do, the old identity loosens its grip while the new one strengthens its hold. As your identity evolves, your financial life begins to transform with surprising speed. You start making decisions aligned with growth rather than fear. You pursue opportunities you once doubted. You hold yourself to standards you once avoided. The world responds to who you believe you are, and when you see yourself as someone capable of wealth, the path to financial freedom becomes not just possible, but inevitable. The fastest way to change your life is to take full responsibility for it, for responsibility is the cornerstone upon which all achievement is built. Until a person truly accepts that every thought, every choice, and every outcome rests squarely on their own shoulders, they remain at the mercy of circumstance, opinion, and chance. Most people spend their lives looking outward, blaming the economy, blaming their upbringing, blaming other people. But the moment you stop pointing fingers and start pointing inward, you reclaim the one thing no one can ever take from you: control over yourself. Responsibility is power in its purest form, and it is the beginning of financial freedom. When you embrace responsibility, you understand that wealth is not about luck, connections, or being in the right place at the right time. It is about what you do consistently, the decisions you make day after day, and the mindset you cultivate to turn challenges into opportunities. The world does not hand out rewards to those who wait, it rewards those who act. And action without responsibility is empty, but action guided by responsibility is transformative. You do not hope for success, you create it. You do not complain about obstacles, you solve them. You do not defer to circumstances, you shape them. Most people fear responsibility because it demands honesty, discipline, and effort. It forces you to confront your weaknesses, acknowledge your mistakes, and make difficult decisions without expecting sympathy or rescue. But it is precisely this courage to stand fully in your own power that separates those who drift through life from those who rise to financial independence. By accepting responsibility, you stop waiting for permission, you stop waiting for validation, and you stop waiting for someone else to lead the way. You become your own architect, your own compass, and your own engine of progress. Responsibility also changes the way you see challenges. A person who refuses to take responsibility sees failure as proof that life is unfair. A person who embraces responsibility sees failure as feedback, a necessary part of growth, and a guide toward wiser choices. Obstacles no longer intimidate, they instruct. Setbacks no longer discourage, they educate. Every decision becomes an opportunity to demonstrate your character, your resilience, and your ability to influence outcomes. When you live in this manner, you discover that the world is not working against you. It is responding to the quality of your input, and input is something entirely within your control. Financial freedom begins with this mindset. By taking full responsibility, you reclaim the energy you once spent blaming and worrying and redirect it toward creating solutions, building value, and seizing opportunities. You begin to operate with clarity, purpose, and integrity, and in doing so, you magnetize success to yourself. Responsibility transforms you into the person capable of wealth, the kind of person who does not wait for fortune to appear, but who compels it to manifest through skill, discipline, and unwavering accountability.